So what happens after you get a signed contract on a house? What steps do you go through next in order to get through the closing process? A lot of people have never been through this process and they do not know what to expect. So I'm happy to put together a little informational video to help guide you through that process. So first, the contract will be given to the loan officer and or myself if I am who you are working with. And from that point, we will prepare your early disclosures. So that's going to be the first step. It's going to be a copy packet that is either electronically sent to you and sent to you in the mail, so you should be getting a paper copy as well. If you do not feel comfortable e-signing the paperwork, please let me know, and I will be happy to sit down with you and go through them one-on-one with you. From that point, I will move your file to what's considered onboarding. They're going to order everything that we need. If it's verification of employments and items of that nature, the appraisal, the title work, so everything will get ordered initially. And then that next step is going to go to a processor. And for me, I work with a few different processors. So depending on where your loan gets assigned, I will let you know ahead of time who to expect emails or phone calls from, so that way you know they are affiliated with me, because I don't want you to be alarmed that somebody is trying to get information on your behalf and they don't really work with First United. So once it goes to the processor, they're going to review it initially before it's sent to underwriting. They're going to make sure that I've gathered all of the correct documentation and there isn't anything else that they might see that the underwriter might ask for up front. So then after they're done with that, they will assign it to an underwriter. An underwriter will review it and just look at all of the guidelines for that particular loan program and make sure that we have everything in there that we need. If there are things that are missing or they need further explanation on, they will reach back out to us with what's called a conditional approval. So when that conditional approval comes over, it will have what we consider to be conditions. So if we're relaying information to you and we use the word conditions, that just states that the underwriter is asking for a little bit more information or needs some clarifications on some things. And so at that point, either myself or the processor will get back with you and we'll clean up some of that documentation or get some extra things that are needed. Then the appraisal will come in, the title work will come in, and once we get those items, then the file will be sent back to the underwriter. The underwriter will then review what's considered the final conditional approval, and they will make sure that we have covered everything that they need. At that point, if everything is in the file that they have asked for and there isn't anything else, then they will issue what's considered the clear to close. We use that very freely. So CTC is sometimes what you'll see in emails or communication in writing, but really that means clear to close. That means that the underwriter has signed off on everything to get you to the closing table. There could be some funding conditions, some internal things that we need to iron out once the closing papers have been signed, but that gets us to the next step. That will allow us to get you to the closing table and get you signed. Prior to the closing table where you will sign all of the papers, there's going to be a closing disclosure that is going to be sent out. It is a preliminary closing disclosure. Several years ago, it used to be considered a HUD-1 statement and then was intertwined with the GFE, and now it is considered a closing disclosure. We have to disclose that to you 3 days prior to closing. It has to be signed and dated 3 business days prior to closing. Otherwise, we have to move the closing date back a day to make sure we are within that time frame. That is going to give you the initial figures of what it looks like for closing, what you might have to bring, down payment, all of those items. We will then send closing instructions over to the title company, and we will then work with them closely to balance and get you a final closing disclosure. That will give us the final numbers, so that way there's no surprises when you get to that closing table. We want to make sure that everything is ironed out prior to then, so whenever you get there, you are just eager to sign and get your house or refinance and make sure that everything is final for you. So at that point, then they fax for funding and get a funding number, and then you're able to move on from there. But I get a lot of questions about what is the next step once I put in a contract or we have decided to refinance our house. What do we need to go through for this process? So hopefully that answers a little bit of questions that you might have on the process and how it works. If you have any other questions that I did not answer or you have any other concerns, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Thank you.